Cool. All right, everybody, and welcome back to Set the Pipe. I am Sully, and today we have CK with us, of course, and no,
Bear, where are you, Bear?
Bear's not here. Bear is hopefully going to join us. He just got off the plane from Norway with Alan Knipe and his crew, so expect Bear to jump on. But today we have a former competitor of ours, Coley, right, in college. Yep. Now he is the number 2 ranked Texas Longhorns head coach, Jerritt Elliott. Jerritt, welcome to Set the Pipe, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a long time waiting for this to happen.
It sure has, Jerry. I appreciate you coming on.
You've been busy, right? And you're not busy at all.
I've just been ignoring today's text messages.
I know he has been. He did. I'm really happy that you finally said, okay, fine, let's do it. And it's a perfect time because your team is on fire right now. And I mean, because you read the text, hopefully not during the match, but definitely after the matches with all of us watching and cheering for you. So you guys are killing it right now. But what we normally do is sit back for a second. I'm going to let Sully here tell you a little bit about your accolades. Obviously, the most important was when you coached in '93 at Cal State Northridge, the Harvard of the West Coast. But we'll let that slip in there through Sully mentioned it. So jump on in there, Mr. Sully.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming, Jerry. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Jerritt comes to us, and he played at Palisades High School, went to Pepperdine Waves to play some volleyball, was a highly touted high school kid coming out of the Southern California region, transferred to Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, and then he got cut his teeth on coaching at Cal State Northridge, the Matadors, of course. And then he actually went to USC, and with a 50-12 record, then took over the Texas Longhorns, where Jerritt has just not looked back, and he has reached the NCAA Final Four 11 times. He's made 7 appearances in the championship match, and he has won 3 NCAA national championships in 2012, 22, and 23, back-to-back. 9-time Big 12 Coach of the Year, 2-time, I believe, Jerritt, Pac-10 Coach of the Year, AVCA National Coach of the Year in 2012. And I can go on, and we're hoping to have him back at a later on pod. But Jerritt Elliott, again, welcome to Set the Pipe. We're so happy to have you on, brother.
Thank you. I'm not sure I was a very highly touted recruit coming out of high school, though.
We talked about that, and Coley and Bear insisted that was the case.
Well, you were. I mean, let's talk about that team you were on, though. Like, that's one of the best high school teams, right? I mean, we talk about it all the time in the chat, but your high school team was pretty solid, and you were one of the best guys on the team, right? Right or wrong?
First part was right, 36-0, arguably one of the teams of all time, but I was like the 7th man coming off the bench. I could play multiple positions, and I was kind of a late bloomer. I didn't start playing actually until I was in 10th grade.
God, that sounds like I didn't either. I didn't start playing until I was a sophomore in high school. Crazy nowadays. That's just not the case. They're almost 3rd grade, 4th grade before you start playing. But we mentioned, go ahead, Coley.
No, go ahead, Sully, jump in.
No, it's, you're University of Texas. You've been doing an outstanding job there, man. Number 2 in the country right now.
25 years.
You guys are on a roll, 8-0 right now. And SEC for the 2nd year. SEC is getting some nice credit in the rankings right now. And is it a big switch from the Big 12 to the SEC competition wise? I mean, you got Kentucky at the top there, but you were in the conference for so long.
Yeah, I mean, I think all conferences are good, and they ebb and flow every year, right? I think, the Big Ten has predominantly been the best conference, but you're seeing a little bit of ebb and flow right now. Obviously, there's Nebraska constant, but Penn State's pretty good, but there's a little, and Purdue's having a good year, but there's it flows. And now, right now, what the cool part about the SEC, nobody ever would have thought the SEC was going to be one of the premier conferences, if not the premier. And they've hired some really good coaches, obviously, because of all the football. There's an incredible backing in women's sports from the conference itself, and the growth of women's sports across the South has been just incredible. And, we're excited to go mix it up, but it's not an easy feat to go win the SEC right now.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's going to be tough. Yeah. I mean, it is strange saying the SEC is going to be up there with the with the big 3 conferences right now. But you're absolutely right. I think it's going to be interesting throughout the rest of the season and the upcoming seasons. But we say this all the time on the podcast that this last year's tournament was so spectacular, right? In terms of play, in terms of people watching, that it's just continued to this year, and the conferences are just getting better. The players are getting better. It's just an exciting place to be. I mean, do you agree that it just kind of turned the tide a little bit last year in terms of just the excitement for women's volleyball?
Yeah, it's been the last few years kind of growing, and the level of athlete now that has really come into sports is just in this sport is just amazing. And there's so many athletes and so many good coaches that the margin for error compared to a couple of years ago is significantly different. We had some NCAA people at our practice this morning, and they're like, "Oh, it's going to be you in the finals," and I'm like, "God, there's 8 teams that could beat us on any given night right now." So we're working on what we need to do process wise, but I think that's where the sports come, and I think that's why it's so exciting. And when people go to a game live, it's just something that's exploding. And I think there's so much more opportunity for the growth of it. I do think it can be a revenue-generating sport for women's athletics, and as more media and more people come behind it, obviously the attendance is the one that's just kind of roaring right now in terms of what's going on.
You guys are sold out. Every home match, you're sold out. That's crazy.
We sold out of our Moody Center in 24 hours. We sold out of all of our season tickets, I think, within a couple of days, which we've never done before. And
so let me jump in so I don't forget, because I like to forget things. How do you tell the world or our country here to mimic that? Like, how do you get, obviously Northridge isn't going to mimic that. And we all know the money but how can you get the Big 10 and the Big 12 and hopefully the new Pac-12 and the ACC to mimic that with what you guys do? I mean, you're selling out. I mean, we're watching as much as we can, our group always, we're seeing matches yesterday, Wisconsin, Florida. The fourth game was amazing. 36-34, 16,000 people in Wisconsin watching that match. Like, women's volleyball has grown so much. It's so exciting. So I guess my question is, you're selling out before games are even there. You're selling out your whole season. How can you get that to happen more in the bigger schools across the country?
Well, I think it's happening across the big schools. It's the medium schools that need to that are continuing to grow that. The challenge that we've always had, and I'm fighting every single day. I mean, I get the question all the time: what do you do when the season's over? People think I just said coach, right? There's people don't know that I have 70 to 80 people that work underneath me, and there's an army that you need to be able to create a vision with, create standard operating procedures. You got to have some KPIs, and you got to be able to gather information. And it's something that I've been relentlessly working at. When I got to Texas, we had 1,200 people that would come to our games, and to me, you've got to be passionate in that position as a coach to be able to make that happen. But you also got to have an administration that supports you, and you got to have a marketing department. And that's the biggest challenge, is the marketing department. I mean, in the last 4 years, we've had 4 flips of new marketing people. And if you don't have the right operating procedures, you don't have the KPIs and how that measurement goes, there's a lot of departments that don't know how to manage that. And it's like reinvent the wheel every single year. And that's what I hear from a lot of different coaches. So, we started off, I got permission from Chris Polonsky to have a table of about 30 people wide. I went out and gathered the most successful people in business and brought them in, and hopefully it would share our information so they could post on social media. I would send them stuff so they could send to their email people, and really just started creating relationships. But you're out there shaking a lot of hands. It's something that takes a lot of time, and doing that with branding of what your social media is doing, your email marketing, how you're getting out in the community. There's a lot of heavy lifting. It just doesn't happen overnight. And you've seen what happened in Nebraska, but that's been going on for years in terms of when Pettit was doing it, and then Cook took it over, and there's just a lot of investment that has to happen for all schools. But there needs to be a better standing operating procedure. There needs to be probably a network where people can share that information. I've shared my information openly with a lot of competitors and coaches to try to grow the game, which I'm not sure is very smart, but I want to be able to grow it. I've been talking to Jamie A&M. I'm hoping that game's sold out. Let's sell out College Station, and let's make that a really great game, because it's great for our sport, it's great for athletes, and most importantly, our teams need to be in that kind of environment to succeed.
Echoing what you said about all the time and effort to create that culture, getting with the marketing and all the put in by the administration. I think Northern Iowa, Bobby Peterson, right? They've done a really good job there as a mid-major to have 3,000, 6,000 when Iowa State comes into town. And it just, like you said, if the mid-majors could really start pumping their just local communities, right, and doing it right. But I do agree that you have to have a certain army behind you. And I'm not talking Texas Army. I'm just like people that know what they're doing, have the passion for it, and can really go after that attendance. Because I'm telling you what, the women's game has changed dramatically with the pipes now coming out of the back row, trying the Bics.
And they are pipes.
Yeah,
you do want to run the Bic, but I saw a bunch of plays yesterday that I would call pipes in that match yesterday. So I know they're not setting the pipe in a play, but it still was a pipe.
But they're athletic. But the kids are athletic. Yeah. So much athletic. They're huge, and their ball control and the different rules with. I mean, I know Libero's been there for a while, but using your hands to keep the rally going. There's no doubles and all that kind of good stuff. But I just think it's changed, and it's time that the focus needs to come on volleyball a little bit more. And that's interesting. You say, I mean, you have your Army in the background, but maybe they still don't get it. Is that kind of what you're thinking? Is that what you're saying?
I think it just takes time to build relationships. I mean, new people come into these communities. They don't know who to reach out to. There's people that don't know. I mean, you've just got to go out and meet as many people. I mean, 6 degrees is really true.
Yep.
It's, look what Knipe's done at Long Beach State. Like, that didn't happen overnight. Or Jim Malaro. Like, Jim Malaro started that way back then, and he had his little posse and started a board and started people. And so today's day and age, you can't just be an X's and O's coach to be successful, at least in my mind.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great coaches, but you better be running it like a business, and you better be looking at all the different things that you need to do from top to bottom. And that's why it's just a relentless profession right now, because you can't just rely on X's and O's. You've got to create a brand behind your program. You've got to create a following. You got to create a community. You got to create communication channels. You got to create all these different avenues that help your product out. And it's nonstop reaching out to these different
and that's
areas.
Not even NIL you're talking, right? I mean, that comes on top of that, but that has not, you're talking about just growing the game. There he is, folks. Tim Beardine Johnson just dialing in.
Bear, fix your stuff, brother. Jesus.
Got to fix his face.
I know. Well, maybe not. I can leave that just the way it is.
And his mic. We'll cut this out. We'll come right back to where we are. And there he is, folks. There's Bear straight off the airplane.
Welcome, buddy.
From Norway. Bear, Jerry.
Welcome, Bear.
Good to see you. It's been a while.
I mean, to finish kind of what my final thought was on before I forget that, because that can happen at my age. But I think one of the things I understood early on was that in order, like, you can create great teams and great opportunities over years, but to create success over a period of time, I always figured that I got to create a brand. And that's how I really started. When I started at Texas, that was my main premier focus in terms of what I was going to be able to do. So brands can sustain over long periods of time. And I think we've really tried to be able to do that at Texas. Luckily, I've had the support to be able to do that. But, that comes with our social media page, how we're talking about ourselves.
Right.
But it kind of understands what the program means and where it's at now. So we've obviously entered that now, and it's rolling. But I lose sleep every single night thinking about how I'm going to sustain this, because there's a tremendous amount of pressure and expectations at Texas.
Well, I mean, you're the CEO, right? Director of volleyball. I mean, that's a huge responsibility and commitment that you have to do. I mean, that's above and beyond what other coaches do as well. And like you said, at Texas is a pretty high standards there.
Yeah, I think, the way what's happened is that I've actually become more of a CEO. I've had to hire some really elite coaches, and I've had to hand off some of the responsibilities that I did for my day-to-day, but just because I'm in 6 or 7 hours of meetings every single day and trying to be able to make all this work. I think I've always learned that it's always greater to have smarter people than you in the room. And I've been able to do that with David Hunt and Ben Josephson, and they're really elite at what they do. They care about our kids. They're very collaborative with us. We watch practice, or we talk about practice for about an hour and a half every day after practice and go over things. But we give them a big leash to be able to be successful. And I think that what I learned from Pete Carroll was, when I had him, he always had an offensive and defensive coach. And so we talked a lot about it when I was at USC with him. And so that's how we've kind of managed our team. David's our defensive coordinator, and Ben's our offensive coordinator. And, we got Riley Bushler at Cantor, who's Jed Bushler's daughter, who's awesome, runs our passing. And we work really well together, and there's no egos in the room. So it works really, really well for us to be successful. And our kids see that and feel that. And it's a lot of fun to be a part of then. You got a community that's everybody's rallying around each other.
Well, Jerry, I've known you for a long time, and I'm going to say it for all our friends. And first, congrats on everything you've done in building an unbelievable brand at Texas. You're in the Final Four almost every year. You're competing every year. But, what I'm hearing you say is how tough it is to do that. And it's not like, I want to go back just for 1 second to Northridge. I'm playing. It's not about me, but I'm playing and you're coaching. What made you want to start coaching? That's the first question. And then I'm going to go all the way to where you just mentioned, where you don't even get to coach as much as you used to because you're running a business. So what made you want to coach, and How much do you miss that first year, not Northridge in general, but that first year of just teaching?
Well, I was an elementary school teacher. That's how I started out. And then I started coaching high school, and then the parents asked me to start a club, and I grew that club. And Dave Rubio came to me. He's like, "You got to get into college coaching," because I came to some of his camps. He's like, "You're really good at what you do." And after I started coaching, I saw a skill development or learning where elementary school teaching PE, you don't see that development the same way. And so I just felt passionate about it. And I watched film as much as I could. I was in the gym as much as I could. I was asking as many questions. And, obviously John Price got me the opportunity to be with you guys. And that caught my passion. And then when I was coaching and teaching, I actually flew out to the Final Four at Texas. This is kind of a great story. I wanted to be the volunteer at Texas, and we're at the Final Four. And there's all these long lines at this everybody's having beers and talking. And Mick Haley's at the back of the line, and this guy comes off with a pitcher. I just kind of grabbed it from him. I said, "Hey, I'm going to borrow this. I'll get you another one." And I walked up, poured him a beer, and introduced myself because I knew that I needed to be able to do that. But he was already full with his position. And then I tried to go to Anna Batikowski at UCLA, and he was full. And luckily, Lisa Love took me on as their volunteer coach. I was teaching elementary school. I was running my club, and I was volunteer coaching at USC to be able to do that. And luckily, I got under the wings of Lisa Love because she's one of the smartest women I've ever known, and really kind of taught me a lot about how to manage women and manage the game and think about things at a different level. So it's just been a blessing to be a part of. But now, Coley, businesses change and things are always developing. And, my job and my responsibility at Texas from my AD's point of view is to go win matches. And so I've got to be able to make sure that I'm doing that and doing that in the way that I can, because that's my responsibility. And I still get a lot of joy at practice watching and talking. And, Ben and I just sat down for about an hour and a half after our meeting and just talked volleyball. And, it's fun to be a part of. And these guys are just crunching the numbers. There's so many analytics you got to dive into nowadays and really study the game internationally and what's going on. And, it's just to have Ben in the gym has been really fun. And David's been there for 3 years and just doing a phenomenal job on the defensive side for us. And, right now we're running more of a men's offense. So it's pretty fun to be a part of. And we're getting some big development out of our freshmen.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about David Hunt coming from, he was a Pepperdine head coach, right, for the men. So how has that helped your culture? How's it helped your offense in terms of the men's game brain? Because that's where you came from, right? And bringing David Hunt into the mix as well. And I know Ben was at Kentucky, I believe. So is it a change of culture for women's volleyball to hear that perspective of, hey, you guys can actually run this type of offense. We can run the bigs. We can do all these things. We can run the D now from the right side. I mean, or is it just business as usual?
No, I mean, Ben comes from he coached the national team in Canada for a long time. He won 7 national championships in Canada. So he's well advised.
He's all right.
The first thing I'm looking for is communication skills and the type of people that they are. I think people, if they can relate to people, then you're going to have a really healthy program, because behind the scenes, there's so many conversations that are going on daily where players are stopping by your offices and you're creating trust and, identifying roles and putting them in the roles and making sure that everybody's on the same page. And you need to have stability from an emotional standpoint as a coach. And it's the one thing you don't learn growing up. And so you've got to have people that are on the same page, that are very focus driven on the human being, but also selfless in terms of what it takes to build the whole program. So, and then your second part of that question was, the men's game, bringing them over. The men's game is obviously run at a faster clip and run at such a high level. And on the men's side, you look at Spraw and Knipe and all these guys that are just, Olympic style coaches. To succeed at that level, you got to be all in and understand the game at a high level. And David's one of those guys. I mean, he can spend 8 hours a day looking at analytics and what they're doing around the world and bring those concepts to us. And it's been fun for him to be a part of that and bring those concepts, because he's very analytical. He knows what the numbers say. He knows what the success says. And then he brings all the new different ideas in terms of what is happening internationally, because literally he's probably watching every single match that goes on across the world. That's how into it he is. And then Ben obviously brings a new perspective. We've had Eric Sullivan for so many years, who we miss dearly, but he couldn't pass this up. I told him if you get the national team job, just get me 2 tickets and I'll support you to take the position. No, but I'm super close with Eric, but Ben's been fun, and he knows that you've got to be able to put big arms together and be able to swing that. And where we are right now, we didn't know what we were going to get out of Kari. That freshman, it's just, she had 28 kills and hit 600 last weekend. It's just it's phenomenal. And that's also attributed to, our passing. Ella Swindle, our setter's gotten significantly better, but they're starting to understand some of the concepts. We're doing a lot more drifting and popping and pulling and some of those concepts in terms of getting those players to different base positions. So there's a lot of concepts that we're actually implementing right now, but it's been really hard in the preseason because our schedule was so brutal and we're playing Wednesday, Sunday, and it's recovery day. And then how are you implementing that? But this group has been so much fun to coach because they've come in and they've wanted to learn. They've been great in film sessions and they're incrementally picking it up. But you can see what it's happened to our offense. I mean, we were kind of a 1 to 200 hitting team, and the last couple of weeks we're getting up into the threes now. So lots of opportunities for growth, but we still haven't even introduced everything that Ben wants to bring into the offensive side.
When you build a culture like you do, and you have, what are the incoming freshmen and the folks or the ladies that are there? It's a natty or bust for them as well, right? When you're building this culture of winning, and you're bringing these folks in, you're learning, you're teaching, but they're expecting to be the best team in the country, are they not? The girls you bring in every year.
Yeah, I think that's why they come here, right? They want to come here to kind of take advantage of what our staff brings to the table, obviously having a chance to win a national championship. But, we tell them it's not everything. It's not a make or break it and everything falls apart if we don't. Like, the chances of us winning are very slight, right? I mean, look at some of these programs that haven't won in a long time. You hear all these big names. It's just people forget how hard it is to win. And so for me, it's the life lessons that you're learning along the way. I think, failing is one of the greatest things that you can do as a human being. And because you go back and you kind of learn and you want to study the game and be able to that. So the process of what we're trying to do is, we're trying to do something this year that no one's ever done, right? Is this increase our hitting percentage, be the best defensive team ever to play the game. And those things are what our goals are every single day. And if at some point we're going to probably take a loss here during the season, and I'm not going to regret that as long as we show up and we compete and we try to execute that. So a lot of it's at Texas, you're trying to numb the situation, not trying to make it such a big deal because you're getting it from every angle in the media and students and the athletic department. And it just, there's a ton of pressure. And then, what people don't talk about is how mean and rude fans are in terms of the DMs and sending really things that should be punishable to go to prison. And it's just, it's one of the things that needs to change in terms of what's going on. So these kids have a lot of pressure on them, and we try to make it fun and enjoyable. And we'll wake up tomorrow if we don't win, and we'll have another shot at it. And that's the way that we.
I'm glad you brought that up. We're going to, not this episode with you or others, but we're going to do maybe a little series on mental health. And that's one thing that gets lost in a lot of these athletes. Everyone gets mad at them because they're trying to get money and transfer and all these things. But like, imagine being a 19-year-old young woman playing volleyball at Texas, and you have a bad match and you hit 30 for whatever reason, and you get blocked. And I mean, because you see them. The way these athletes are treated by supposed to be fans is sickening, is what it is. And it shouldn't be like that, like you said. And they're college athletes. They should be treated as college athletes, and they're out there giving it their best and doing what they can for their college. And that's crazy that they have to deal with that kind of stuff. Really is.
Yeah, Coley, my greatest fear, I lost my nephew to suicide in 2016.
Yes.
And my biggest fear is I wake up every day thinking about how can I protect my athlete. And so that's part of the culture, is really a part of that. But we have a lot of things that we do in place. Like we have iPads they got to fill out every morning about what kind of mood they're in, what their stress levels are. We have today we had all of our staff together in terms of talking about each player, because I don't hear everything and they all hear it, and what we can do for each one of them, because it is hard. whether it's the fans, whether it's parenting, whether it's coaches, whether it's boyfriends,
life,
life, whether it's NIL, whether it's agents. There's things that are coming at them, and this generation, this age group doesn't know how to handle all that. So that's why it's so important for me to have our staff that we have, is because they're great at being able to manage that. And they can have conversations without me, and I trust them to be able to have those conversations. And we need all of us in the same boat. So that's why I create our program where everybody's kind of created equally. I don't think that I'm the head coach. Yes, I'm the head coach, and I make the decisions that I have to when the tough ones are made. But most importantly, everyone gets credit in what we're doing, and everyone feels a part of it. And that's why I think I've had staffs that have lasted so long within our program.
Well, that's indicative of who you are, and that's why you're a winner, is because that's all you care about. It's not about you. It's about winning and the team. And I've known that for decades. But listening to what you're saying about, you said earlier, like I asked you a question about mimicking it, what you do across the country and different programs. Are other programs and in the coaches you're talking to having this same discussion with what you just mentioned about how hard it is for these kids, not just with school, with DMs, with marketing, with agents, with trying to win, with all of it. Is the rest of the country catching on to this where we can mimic with what you just said about having those conversations to try to make these kids, because most of them are kids, young adults, better people?
Or are they not?
Or are they not?
I
mean, I can tell you one that isn't, but that's a different story. That's in basketball. He's an asshole, but there's others that aren't. But I'll go back to, I want to hear your answer.
Look, I think no matter what sport, there's a gauge for really good people. There's people that don't do it right, and there's people that really struggle with it. And so, the scary thing is, I go to these recruiting tournaments and I have no more friends. They've all either retired or they've been fired. And I'm kind of by myself now, going back to my hotel room and having a beer by myself. But I mean, there's some conversations about it for sure. I think it's athletic departments are being able to have that. But at the end of the day, it falls on the coach and the structure that they want to have. And that's where it goes to, what are the procedures? How are they going about it? How is the staff being able to do it? And are you openly, encouraging those conversations? The number one goal for me, and I tell every parent, is my goal is to get my kids to be, my players to be vulnerable with me, right? As soon as they can be vulnerable and they can cry in my office and they get those things, they can ask for help, right? That's the biggest fear that an athlete has, is like, if I go to my coach and I think I'm weak by going to them, they're not going to be able to play. And so to me, it's always changed them the other way. And I have a story about one a couple of years ago that was like, I'm not going to cry. And every one of my athletes have done that. And I won't use the name, but like, every time I talked to her about it, she's like, it's weak if you cry. And it took me probably 3.5 years to finally break that egg. And then it was just full pouring tears.
And she was so much better.
That's right. Like, yeah. And then you create a bond to it with it as well, right?
Yeah.
The reality is, like, look, Coley, if I was asking for help, I mean, you say it on a thread all the time. Like, if any of you need help, just reach out. Because I know you would do that for me, but for some reason, human beings don't have the ability to take that on themselves and ask for help because they think they're bothering people. So, I think there's a therapist type mentality that you have to have as a coach, and you need to invest in that. You need to understand how to communicate and the rhythms of that. And sometimes I'm really good at it. Sometimes I'm really poor. David's excellent at it. Ben's really, really good at it. And so when we get the combination of all those, it's the biggest challenge we have, and it's what we talk about every single day.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, because it's an important piece, and it's hard, we talk all the time, Jerry, but from our generation and how we are and our friends are and all of us, Bear and Sully and how we competed, we just spit on the ground, wipe your shoes up and go with the sprained ankle and play. Like, it's a different world in a million reasons. And it's not that the kids are worse now than they were then. It's just different, and it's a different world, and it needs to be addressed differently and accordingly, which you are, and other programs, I think, across the country with every sport needs to, because it's just a different dynamic these kids grow up in. And, social media is the biggest of it all. And it's hard to navigate that. I have 2 children, and, all of us do. And it's been tough. And so for you to do that as part of your program, again, it's why you're winning, right? It's another part of the culture that you do, and that I'm sure people talk about, and reasons why you'd want to go to Texas, not just because you win, but that's, it's other things.
I mean, the cultural part of today's day in sports is every kid is protected, right? They play in these club sports. It's year round. They don't go. When we were young, I mean, we were going out and playing pickup hoops, and we were fighting.
Everything.
I mean, Coley's seen me be in a numerous amount of fights back in the day when
I'd love to tell that story. I don't know if we're allowed to, but
not that we've talked about one of those.
I mean, at the end of the day, we were fighting amongst ourselves, right? And we were fighting in that. Like, it just was because you learned how to stick up for yourself, or it didn't happen, and that doesn't happen anymore. I mean, my kids are now both 19 and 20. They've never been in a fight, so it's just. So that's a different stressor when you don't learn how to be able to you don't know how to stick up for yourself, and it's this different fear of like upsetting everybody. And the social media piece is spot on with all that stuff. And it's sad, but it's also a great opportunity to be a part of this. And there's so many positive with change. Like, it's just hard. Every generation goes through something different in terms of like, right. My parents' generation, like if you didn't get hit by a belt or like some kind of paddle, like your parents weren't tough enough on you. And then it kind of got like that. Now it's changing, and it's just different. And it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's different coping mechanisms, and you got to teach them and how to have those behaviors to be able to succeed.
Yeah, like I'll give you let me jump in real quick, because there's one I can't really talk about the fight itself, but if you guys recall, there was a Super Bowl, first one the Buffalo Bills ever played in, and Norwood missed the field goal, where Cal State Northridge is playing against Hawaii, and Jerritt's at Hawaii. He's at the Inverse Hawaii. He actually has us over at his house, big barbecue. We're all watching the Super Bowl game. And Ken Lynch on my team wants to fight Jerritt. Now, Jarrett's at Hawaii. They're both big guys, and no one wants that fight. Nobody wants that fight. We're trying to watch the game. It's unbelievable. Guy goes wide left. They get outside. They're about to get after it. And Jarrett's not a coach now. He's in college. He's at Hawaii. We're two college guys. And they ended up not fighting, thank God. But it was just such a funny moment of my life that I'll never forget. It's one of the first times I've known you for a few years before that. But, but the point of that is they were going to get after it for a reason. And they're still friends. They were friends before. They were friends after. But they were about to really get after it. And that would have been, Geeter and Matty O were really, trying to separate them too. But it was good times back in those days. There's a few others I'll leave off the chain. But it was it's something that kids don't go through. And that's why you said it earlier. Many of coaches that we've had on here, Jerry, that have some of the best have ever known it, have all said failing is important. And we as a society in general don't want people to fail. If you lose as a 6-year-old, you still get your cookie and your trophy, because that's what we need to do. Like, everyone gets their cookie and their trophy, but you lost, and you need to learn to lose, and you need to learn to accept that. So I think that's awesome that you talk about that, and it's an important piece. It's an important piece that needs to be continually discussed and accepted to learn from it.
Yeah, Ben is big into videos for our filming sessions and our motivation and stuff. And one of the ones he brought in, I forgot the guy's name, but it's this old ex-military guy, and he's talking to his buddy, and his buddy's always failing. And the word that he always said, it was good, right? You fail at something good, because it's always going to open up different opportunities of what you're doing. So, when you fail, it's such a good thing, because you're going to go back more motivated. You're going to look at things differently. You're going to work back up. The most successful people in the world are the ones that have failed the most. That's why C students are more successful than honor students, because they're willing to fail and they're willing to be able to do that. And there's a big skill set in that. And that's what I tell my players all the time. I'm like, if my player's a bad match, I'm like, that was awesome. And like, what do you mean it was awesome? Hey, we failed. How are we fixing this? Like, let's go back and look at it and watch some film with our coaches and get ourselves better. But 20 to 30% of the time, you're going to have a bad match as an athlete. I'm not evaluating you as a human being because you failed in your position. We still won the game. Or you had the winning kill at this match, even though you were hitting 150. When it counted, you came through and you were able to do that. So it's putting some perspective on it for these kids.
Yeah.
How old were you when you took the first head coaching job at SC? How old were you?
I was 30. I got the interim job at USC.
So when I was talking about the last 10 or 15 years, I've noticed that the coaches are just head coaches' opportunities are just getting younger and younger and younger. And so I've always compared them to basketball or football, that if they announce a head coach at 35, man, that's super young. It's super young. And when you brought up how you're dealing with your Army and being the CEO and having that empathy for the kids and that connection, do you think some of those head coaches out there in the trend to go younger, they're missing that mentorship in order to handle those situations better, to be able to be smart enough to conduct as a business and to be, like you said, you're shaking hands all the time. Is a 25, 27, 28-year-old equipped to do that? Or it's just, it is what it is, but I've always felt that mentorship is so huge, and putting your time in, putting your years in to understand the X's and O's, but the ABCs to what you guys have to deal with today to develop that culture, to be able to have that empathy with that connection with those players. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I think there's two parts to that. I think the first part is today's day coaches. When I started coaching, I was coaching club for 8-9 years, and I was learning how to have conversations at that point. I was learning to deal with parents. I was learning how to do the X's and O's. I was learning to try things. A lot of these coaches have never actually sat in the head seat for the very first time. And every one of my assistants that's gone to be a head coach, I tell them, like, it's a completely different emotional feel. It's a completely different stress. And they're like, okay, I got it. I'm listening. And then they call me, a couple months in and like, this is completely different than what we expected. But I think part of this is like, if you were, take basketball. If you were an assistant coach for Bobby Knight, that's all you know. And you think his success is because he's just a hard ass and he's going to be able to do it that way. So there's a lot of coaches I see that get into their coaching and they have one mentor, and that's how they behave because they've seen that success based on that mentor. So I think there's, again, to me, studying is the most important thing. And when I was a coach, I was trying to read. I read so many books trying to figure out what the magic was, right? The Winner Within, all these different things, and what they had.
Sure.
And at some point I was on a run after about 8 years. I'm like, God, you're an idiot. It's just about communicating, right? It's if you can communicate and you can motivate your players and you can set standards that everybody understands how to do, you're going to have a chance to be successful, right? And that's the key. That's a big part of this.
Interesting. Yeah. Because I've run into coaches that have just been super young. I'm like, oh my gosh, like you just need some more mentoring, or you get coaches that are mentoring from a toxic perspective, and then they get that head coaching job, and that's all they know. They just know to be toxic, and they, I don't know, but this, and especially the roles that you're in at that higher NIL stuff, and now it's just a completely different monster altogether. Being young like that and be able to pull that off, I would assume is extremely tough.
I mean, it goes both ways too. I mean, for me, I'm isolated, right? I'm expected to know everything. Nobody wants to ask me questions. Nobody comes to me. I don't have anybody to lean on because I don't know who I can trust in the volleyball world, right? Like, so as you get older, as men, there's not, the community starts kind of dwindling a little bit more.
Small,
like I have some people that I have Jessica Brennan. You'll see her, the female on my side. She played at Long Beach State, won a national championship there, one of the most successful women in business, but she's such a bright mind. So I have a great relationship with her. She's an advisor on my staff.
What's her last name?
Brennan.
Is that her married name?
It's her married name.
Alvarez. Oh, yeah, I know she is.
Yep. So she was, and now I just can lean on her, and she's great with our females as well. So I have a female perspective along with Riley to be able to do that. So I think it's being aware of what your surroundings are and where your stresses are and how to be able to process that, because if I'm upset, I gave myself kind of a 24-hour rule before I react, to kind of think things through and step back from, am I making the right perspective? Because when I hear things, there's some things I'm like, I just want to snap, and luckily my age can calm that down a little bit more, right? And it's, you got to have
I've gotten to 48 hours. 24 hours is a little short, but you have to have 24 hours.
That's time, but
I give myself an hour these days.
I have to wait. I will lose.
Let me ask you
with
what Sully said on the flip side of it. These younger coaches, do they have an advantage, at least on the social media and the way to get into the younger generation, information wise and communication, or is it?
I think the younger generation obviously has some advantages because they know what the generation, how they think and behave. Like, right, I'm now getting started to get separated from that. I know how to talk to the parents. I know how to be good, and I know how to talk to those kids, but I'm not going to be buddy in the recruiting process with them. Like, hey, what's up, dude? Like, how's it going? Like, that's not me anymore. But when I started, I thought that was how I was doing. I was like writing colored envelopes and doing all things when I was knowing how to relate to April Roz and all those kind of kids to try to get them to be interested. And you have a staff that can do that. David's excellent at that. Riley's really good at it. And, but now there's so much information. That's why your brand is so important, because you're communicating to them via your social media. Right? Like, I don't get to talk to them until July 15th of their junior year or their sophomore year. So it takes some time.
Unbelievable. Quick, I'm going to pivot, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I do want to ask you a question. You cut your teeth playing men's volleyball. How do we grow men's volleyball throughout the country? You and I've talked about it. I just want to kind of talk about a little bit on the pod. Like, it's tough and we know why, but is there a way to get a school like a Texas in the SEC or the Big Ten or any of those big conferences to add more men's volleyball?
Right now, with the state of college athletics, it's going to be really difficult in the big conferences. I think one of the challenges that we have is that it's the fastest growing sport in the country. It's a very affluent sport. But we have USA, we have JVA, we have AAU, and we have all these different regions. Nobody works together. They don't share email lists. They don't communicate. There's no shared vision for what's greater for the sport. And because there's so much money in it, there's a little bit of selfishness. And so I think Spraw's doing a really good job trying to bring that back together right now. I think he's making some steps to be able to do that. But, when these clubs that are running these clubs that are making the amount of money, they're making business decisions. So it's getting all these communities to get involved and be a part of that. It's such a big thing. And there's no vision. And if you don't have a vision, you don't have a strategic plan, you don't have the context of email lists and communication patterns, and it just becomes really, really challenging. But there is for sure a way to be able to do this, and I think there's a way to be able to do that. But we've got to be able to get people together from the very, very top of each organization to say, hey, we want to grow this game at a different level. We want to be able to do it in this kind of way. And men's volleyball is a priority in terms of what we're being able to do. And it's scary right now for men's volleyball, but I think there's a way to go about that. But the wealth, I can't speak enough about the wealth. I had a high up person in a certain league come to me and said, "Hey, can we have access to your boosters?" And I was like, "You have hundreds and hundreds of boosters in your organization. Just learn how to be able to do that." So there's no endowment program. There's no way to be able to do that. You look at University of Texas. I don't know what we're raising, probably $50 to $70 million just in endowments. And there's so many parents where you could be able to go and do that. I've always said that one of the things I strongly believe, and I've told Sproul this, and I think he'll probably get to that point, but TK is one of the best tour directors in the world. And so fun to be a part of. Every dad dreams to have a mentor for their daughter. Speaking of that, role model, being able to do that. And some of these people just have play money. So what I would do is, I was the head of it, I would go out and say, "Hey, I'm going to go get a director of foundation, or a couple of them, and there's some that work for some really good, that are ex-volleyball players, and go raise money. And for $250,000 or $500,000 a year, or a quad, you're going to have a mentor on the women's volleyball team at USA. And then at the Olympics, I'm going to send you a TK, and we're going to wine and dine you. We're going to drink some good wine. We're going to go. We're going to get tickets. We're going to figure out a way to do that." And I think that way you could be able to grow it. You can grow that way, and then you get some more money involved and get all these big brands. I mean, the fact that the big brands are not still behind volleyball is mind-boggling to me. The Marys and all that. So it's coming, and it's coming fast. But it's I think Sproul has the right mindset. He's getting the right things in place, and I think he'll probably get to these kind of models very shortly.
Well, we hope so. And I appreciate you giving us that insight, because I promised Knipe that I'd always ask anyone that was on this who played volleyball on the men's side to help who are now on the women's side, which you obviously fall into that. And we know that the money's the big thing and all of this stuff. And so I'm hopeful. We're hopeful. We're going to get John on here soon. And we've had TK, and he's coming back. And when we all know TK does it as good as anyone, if not better than anyone's ever done it with what he does. And I know he wants to grow it. You want to grow the game. We want to grow the game. Not just the men's game. We want to grow the game overall, right? But to see the men's game get a little bit bigger and better, I don't see it, doing what we're watching on the weekends right now with women's volleyball with 15, 17,000 people. But, you should be able to get 2,500 to 3,000 across the country in the right spots to play men's volleyball. And these colleges, if they could just peel a little bit off, they got the balls. Well, the balls are different. They got the court. They got the standards. They got a few other things. Just find a way to throw it out there. And like you said, the big one would be the endowment and getting the right people to bring the money behind it.
I mean, you can endow the sport. I mean, look what happened with Stanford's men's volleyball.
Yeah.
Every one of those guys donate, and I don't know how many millions of dollars they do it. I mean, it's possible, but they had a rally cry. They had a committee. It'd be interesting for you to have all of the heads of all the different leagues on here and say, "Hey, like, how do we make this happen? What are the issues? Learn what those are, throw it against the wall, and then start peeling it away." There's a lot of relationships over the years that have been burned for probably very good reasons, but we got to go back and get rid of our egos, throw stuff against the wall, break it all up, and say, "Hey, if we're all with a vision of growing this game, how do we go about doing it? How do we protect our own businesses? We understand that, respect that, and then how do we come up with these key metrics where we can help each other up?" And that could be as simple as sharing information, sharing data, sharing opportunities, getting sponsorships behind that, figuring out who go to a club tournament, start asking parents what they do. You're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm the CEO of this company that's worth $400 million. Or they're everywhere." And so getting those people and identifying the 6 degrees of separation and bringing them together and having these committees is the key to this. But when you bring them together, it better be a good time, and it better be a good event, and it better be enjoyable. And that's why I say TK, because you're going to have a great time doing that.
Yeah. Speaking of,
great
money,
business mind.
You've had, I'm going to pivot back to Texas here for a minute. You've had a great run with NBA and NFL players, one right now dominating. Is there a way to get them more involved? Obviously, we saw KD throw the money towards one of the pro leagues. I see more pro athletes starting to help with the women's indoor professional game. How is the professional athlete linked to you right now at Texas? A lot of them are coming to you. And is there a way to get into the professional sports to help them create more of an opportunity for volleyball across this country?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing it. KD invested in love volleyball. I mean, there's all kinds of athletes being able to do that. We don't necessarily need them to invest in Texas. Like, I need to invest in their daughters so they're happy in being a part of that. But they understand where it's going, and I think they have connections of people that Marcus Spears talking about it on ESPN, and they're bringing it up, like it's awesome for the sport, right? And so those things are enough. The fact that we're getting these athletes now coming over to volleyball is phenomenal, and these parents from the professional side are incredible. I mean, Marcus Spears has just got his head on straight, and her mom's awesome, and grandma's feisty, and they're teaching her the right values. I mean, it's fun to be a part of it, and that's why she's succeeding, because she just had this great family that's been a part of it for so long, and this is her own path. But yeah, Coley, money's not the issue. It's zero part of the issue. It's the organization, it's the structure in place, and who's going to organize that, and who's going to be the caveat to bring everybody together to make this happen, and then have those skill sets. I mean, you've been around volleyball for a long time. It's probably one of the most unorganized, lack of focus. We've got volleyball people trying to run it instead of really bringing people together that could use their minds and space to be able to do that. I mean, how many times have we seen the AVP fall apart?
Yeah,
it just doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't work, and so
it's hard to believe with the athletes then and now at the AVP. And you look this past couple of weeks when Geeter did the Hermosa, like it's still packed. The fact that they have not been able to capitalize off that and find the business model to be successful is alarming, especially when I'm watching like stuff on beer toss and spike ball on ESPN. I know they pay for their spots, but nonetheless, you're watching all that and you don't see volleyball, especially beach that's grown since all these years. It's crazy to me.
But there's no social media followings. There's no media behind it. There's no weekly newsletters. That's what we have now is we have stars that we've made stars of the game. When I have 420,000 or Nebraska has 420,000 social media followings and they post about their player, they become instant stars, and the TV knows that, and they're picking that up, and then it becomes, I got a familiar face, I want to watch who that person is. Like you watch the AVP, I couldn't name 4 guys on the AVP right now, and I grew up in Southern California. Right. Like that's the challenge.
You're right.
Those conceptual things of all these different media pieces that need to get together, and people need to get together. You're running a business. If you're going to make it successful, you better. It's a $1 billion business for volleyball. That's why all this money is coming into it. But nobody knows how to be able to be the synergy to bring it all together. And again, I think Sprawl is going to be the one to do that. And I'm excited about it. But I'm hoping the club organizations, the pro leagues, the AAUs, the JVAs can all come together and, step back, be a little bit vulnerable and say, hey, how can we grow the game? And then ultimately their businesses are going to flourish even more because they're getting a bigger picture to it. So, and getting more media rights, right? If these pro leagues are going to succeed, we've got to have big TV deals.
Yeah.
Period. Yep. I agree. So I know this interview's a lot different than probably what you do on a daily with the media and University of Texas, but I'd be remiss not to say, how's Texas looking this year? It sounds like you got some freshmen, you got some veterans out there that are killing it for you guys. So give us a little take. I know you got Vandy here coming up, which is a great story in itself, right? Since 1980, they finally bring back that team. But yeah, I'd be remiss to not let our listeners know, coming from the head coach from the University of Texas, how you guys looking this year.
Yeah, I mean, we've been obviously a powerhouse the last couple of years. Last year was a little bit down, but we had to kind of revamp. We have the number 1 class that came in recruiting-wise. We've got right now 3 freshmen that are playing significant minutes and performing, and then we got some really good veterans behind them. And Tori Stafford, who we got as a transfer from Pittsburgh, Southern California kid, she's been a real catalyst for us. She's one that is a real giver, 1 through 16 into the staff, shows up emotionally stable every day and gives confidence to the players. We've got Ella Swindle, who's coming back and playing her best volleyball right now as a setter. And then we've recruited Ramsey Gary out of Indiana, who has been the USA libero at under 21. And her and Emma are probably 2 of arguably the better liberos in the country. So we've really kind of patched up the areas that we needed to do. And then these freshmen, you never know what you're getting, right?
It's hard.
I've seen Gatorade Players of the Year that haven't been able to succeed my freshman year. Kari Spears has been playing opposite for 6 weeks and is now like her attack selection, her range, her understanding of the game. I'm just blown up. I mean, there's times where Ben and I are just high-fiving on the bench like, this kid's unbelievable at times. And right, Abby's making her, because Abby's in the toughest position as an outside hitter and playing against these huge blocks for the first time. And it's been so much fun. Taylor Harvey just come in the last couple of matches and has been lighting it up offensively for us. So there's this great combination, but there was an investment this group made last spring. And our program, the way we operate is we try to create a community. And when you have a family the upper kids are always role model for the younger kids. And so for our program, the juniors and seniors are reaching out, going to coffee, inviting them over for dinners, and actually becoming real friends with these players. In a lot of programs, juniors and seniors are on their own, and the freshmen and sophomores are kind of figuring it out. So I think there's a lot of trust that's built with that. They can actually be vulnerable and ask for help and say, how do I do this? And that kind of trust that then comes into the game, and you can play at a really high level. And it takes a lot of skill set to be able to do that. It takes a lot of managing from the coaching staff to be able to teach those roles and those values, because what you think about is every one of our kids comes from a different parenting. You got single parents, you've got divorced parents, you've got very affluent parents, you got low income, you got foreign kids, and their values are all different. Not that they're wrong, but they've all been tough. And then you got to bring them together and say, wait, here's how we operate as a program. Here's what our values are. Here's how we're going to treat each other. And we're going to go through these, and we're going to demand this from you. And we're going to give a lot of gratitude to each other and teach that. I mean, that's what I really learned from all of my friends. We've got a group of, I don't even know, 40 to 60 guys that are just on these email, but we've always pumped each other up. We've always had this community where you always feel like you're $1 million. And I'm so thankful that I've had this community, because they've taught me more than I've learned in coaching, because you just always feel the love. I can pick up a phone, or someone's going to text me about how great I am just from an emotional standpoint, getting that feel. So I try to bring that into my program, like my friend group, in terms of that community, into how we behave and how we operate. And that's a lot of my discussions, and that's what a lot of our staff does. But there's just so many skill sets you need. And I'm lucky to have had the friend group that I've had, because they're a big, I was a know-nothing of all my friends. I mean, I was the ugliest guy. I was the one that had like 4
I think
jobs.
you're doing the best out of all of us right now, Jerry.
I was the one that had 4 jobs.
I remember you when you were younger and you had the blonde hair. You were quite the player back in the day. How did you even start playing volleyball?
Hi. She should be happy with you. You talk about your, we'll come back to you, Bear, just because I don't want to leave this with Jerry. You talk about your friend group and on all the folks, that text you. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of that and how many years we've been together. But something I'm going to say to everyone listening, and you said it, so I'm going to take this. When you said earlier, you share a lot with folks, right or wrong. You're like, hey, maybe I shouldn't do this, but you do it. Knight does it too. 2 of the best, if not the best coaches in men and women's collegiate volleyball have been on this podcast. So thank you for coming. Grateful isn't a word I could even say without you coming with all the time you're doing and what you're doing. He's giving everyone, high school, college, just nuggets of how you could help your program be successful. Knipe says a lot of the same things you do. And you two are, you're the best. You guys are the best at what you do. And listening to you talk about building up your players and having a community and having them work with each other is, obviously it's music to my ears, because that's how you win and that's how you build a program and stay successful. But, hopefully people are listening and can incorporate some of it with what you're saying for their programs, their youth, their high school, their collegiate. So like you said, we can make this sport better, because as much as you don't want all these teams to be better, and instead of, you just said earlier that maybe 8 teams can beat you, the last thing you want is to have 20 teams beat you. That's going to be a bummer, because then you have to be that much better. But if there's 20 teams that could beat you, or 30 teams that could beat you, how about that in women's collegiate volleyball? The excitement would be just through the roof, right? So it's just continuing to get better. So thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. And, again, it's how you do it. And it doesn't mean you are right? It doesn't mean that, but you've been pretty successful in a lot of things you do has really built an unbelievable community program and brand.
Yeah, well, there's 30 teams right now that could probably, it's getting to that point. I mean, you're seeing upsets all left and right. I mean, the number of athletes that are coming over to our sport and the growth of it is just, it's so much fun. And I think, at the stage of my career, I want to help it out. I want to make sure that I'm a positive influence for some coaches, and the ones that reach out, I try to help them a lot and just give them my nuggets. But there's so many ways to be successful. You just got to be consistent with your philosophy and your theory, and you got to manage people well. If you can't manage yourself and you can't manage your emotions and you can't manage your staff, that's where it gets a little bit more challenging.
Yeah. Bear, you had a question, Bear?
Oh, you're just talking about being the ugly guy. And I remember when you were younger, you had the blonde hair. I think you probably played on the beach. I was kind of wondering how you started with volleyball when you were younger, and a little bit of your playing career. And we're the same age. And I remember playing against you in high school and stuff, and you were like above everybody else. You were a great player.
See, that's where we get it from.
Do you
right there.
do you still play at all? I mean, we're getting up there a little bit, but I mean, I still kind of dabble.
Oh, he sides out. Look at that court out there. There you go. Of course he does.
Oh,
I love it. I love
That's
it.
not my,
Yes,
my,
he does.
Actually, my court is that one right there, the pickleball court.
Yes, Jerry's really good at that.
This one is my wife's court.
Just kind of curious.
I actually played short court for the first time the other day. But, I got into the sport by accident. I played in 9th grade. I hurt my back. I went to like a little clinic, and then I was going to be a baseball player. And I played a lot of baseball, and I was getting ready for tryouts, and I hurt myself, and I couldn't go to the baseball tryouts. And then the high school volleyball coach said, "Hey, why don't you come out and try out?" And I was so scared I didn't try out. I was too nervous. I'm like, I'm not good enough for this sport. And then the next day he found me in the hallway. He's like, "Why didn't you come out?" I was like, "I was too nervous. I'm not good enough. I've never really played the game." He's like, "We're having another tryout tomorrow. You better be there." And so I went and tried out. Met all these fabulous people, Adam Unger, JB Saunders. We started playing York court at their backyard house. Kind of met my second dad and Henry Unger. And then we would just live on the beach and play all day long, every single day. And we're just super competitive. But it would go from the beach to playing dunk ball, to playing, mud football. Like we would just, all we did was have our bikes and play games all day long. And I got into it. And I found the bug. And, I had, my partner, my senior year was Matt Unger, who was a sophomore. I mean, he was the guy that carried me on the beach and won me my little gold men. It's funny, I was telling somebody at Stein the other day, it's like these people are complaining about playing 3 matches in a day. And then I showed up like my double elimination, not blocking over and going 2 hours with Butch May and coming through 136 person qualifier for 2 straight days.
Right.
But yeah, I got into it and I fell in love with it. I got recruited my senior year at JO's to Pepperdine. I was there for 2.5 years. Then ended up transferring to Hawaii and then made another great community of friends over there, and got an opportunity to coach with John Price. And I wasn't planning on being a coach.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
Hey, Jerritt, you let in about recruiting a little bit and about how you take kids from different families, right? Everybody's going to have a different experience and how they're raised and all that kind of good stuff. How much a part of your recruiting process is looking into that in depth? I guess it's a little bit easier now with social media, but obviously you're looking for the best player you could possibly get your hands on. But knowing their family, knowing how they were raised, how they are as an individual, what's the premium you put on the non-playing part of an athlete when you recruit them to Texas?
That's a great question. That's the number one priority that we put on our program right now, is the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
No, it doesn't.
Right. So we study that, we make that, and we look at behaviors from the athlete as well. And there's many top 5 athletes that we have turned down over the last few years just based on that. Not that they're bad kids, not that anything, but we've gone with our route and our formula to figure out what that is. And, we invest in that. And so we do a lot of homework. And hopefully it turns out right, but I think that's one of the reasons we have such good chemistry, is that, I've learned long ago, even though I've had my success, I can't coach every kid great. Right. I mean, it's hard. I haven't been a great coach to every single athlete that has come through. There's one that's been more challenging, and I've tried my hardest, but sometimes that doesn't be able to work. But I think the overall body of work has been pretty successful with our staffs that we've had here. But it's moving more and more towards that, especially at my age, because I had 2 of my friends call me the other day, Matt Unger and John Wallace. Like, we haven't seen you had this much fun coaching in a lot of time. You're just having so much joy. So it's my community, and I better be doing it because you're putting in 80 hours a week and going all out to try to do this thing that's virtually impossible to do, and that's win championships.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that speaks volumes to all of our listeners, because we all know when we go to tournaments, there's those crazy parents, and they don't think they're being watched. But Coley was when he was, and he's self-admitting that, right? But it's a big part of it. It really is. Especially, you would think in your position too at Texas with NIL and now money in play, that's even more important to really sit back and like you said, form that formula about the kid, about the family, about how they're raised, and then they kind of come into my culture, right, as a Texas head coach, and then I have to mold them with our culture. And are they going to be not even coachable but moldable? I would imagine. I would think, man, I'm glad to hear you say that, just because just the way things are shifting right now in the NCAA, that you put a high premium on that, man. That's good.
I
for
put
you.
everything
Good for
on it.
you.
Emotional intelligence is so important from the parents, right?
Yeah.
And so NIL is a real thing, and the root of all evil is money. And so as athletes start talking about that and they want to share that, it just gets really, really ugly. It just has turned a lot of locker rooms upside down. So it's something that concerns me every day. It's something that we talk with our team about on occasion to try to make sure that we're aware of what these things are. You know, like Coley and I have been friends for, I don't know what Coley makes, you know. It's like, it's not a question that you ask people, like how much money you make, right? So it's just, these things are, you better have all these pieces in place. And again, it's just having this thought process. You're running a business. You're not just running X's and O's. And I think that's the important piece. And I think the last thing I'll just say is, like, if I'm giving advice to anybody, it's just be vulnerable. No, you're not the greatest. I'm not the greatest coach in the world, and I don't see myself that way. I see that I'm chasing something this year. Can I be good at managing it this year? And can I make sure that my staff sticks together and my team? And if I'm erratic, it's hard. And it's really easy when you got all that pressure on you and you feel it. Because really in coaching, you really don't enjoy the wins anymore, unless it's the very last one. Right? You're just more scared of losing than you are winning all the time. But when your players go out and play and perform like this group's doing, I'm having a blast doing it. And it's a lot of fun. And coaching can be very, very rewarding. At the end of the day, coaching is not. Here's a fun story that I'll tell you, is that in 2011, we were cracking, like 2007, 2008, 2009, we lose 16-14 in the fifth to Penn State in national championship. 2010, we're there. 2011, we're getting ready to go. Cat Bell tears her ACL. We end up losing in the Elite Eight to UCLA. And I walk back because the players have a 10-minute break before we can go and talk to them. And my AD at the time followed me into the training room. It was just me and her. And I've got my head down. I'm just shaking my head, thinking of all what went wrong in the game. And she's like, "What are you thinking?" And I'm like, "You don't want to know what I'm thinking." And she kept asking me. I'm like, I didn't tell her. And then I got up and I was getting ready to go. I'm like, "I'm thinking about quitting. I'm going to go talk to my team." And I went and talked to my team. I got out of that and I went, "Oh shit, I just told my AT I'm thinking about quitting." So I ran down and I found her. But it gave me like some perspective, because when I was talking to one of my friends, he's like, "You should be really proud of the body of work." And he was a contractor. I'm like, "Well, how would you feel if you built a house and you put on that last tile and everything fell off? Like you don't see the finishing product of it all." And so that after that happened, over that break, I spent a lot of time just kind of thinking. And what I realized is that my impact and my joy is going to come from seeing my athletes marry the right people, have kids, be successful in business, have relationships with them long term. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
I mean, Coley brings it up all the time. And you just did indirectly, Jerritt, that you've known Coley for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
You know, you're on this text chain or emails that are with these same people, and they make your day brighter. They make your life better. They make your profession better. They make you better. Right. And a part of that is the connection of the sport, but like who we were and who we were coached by, and those shared stories. Like we were competitors, and then all of a sudden, right after college, Coley, myself, and Bear, and Alan, and Jason Perkins, and others, right? We all played together after
Matty
college.
O played on that team once too. It's amazing.
What's that?
I said, even Matt Unger played on Paul Mitchell one year.
Yeah. So
I got to coach that team one year.
It's just
you did. You did. Was that the same year in Arizona? Was it? Yeah. No. Yeah, it was with Rubio.
Yes.
Yes, that's when me and Esol had a really good run on the beer pong table, and he was in the trunk on the way down. USA Volleyball probably doesn't want to hear that, but he got there safe to the bar afterwards. But that was a good run. Even you were part. If you didn't know that, Bear, you were there. Sully, you weren't at that one.
No,
I don't think I was at that one.
I think that was
you weren't at Arizona.
That's
when Presh rolled his ankle. It was just a rough. We took fifth. We took fifth twice, and that was one of them. It was a really bad outing for us. But
not good. Not good though.
Jerry, one or two last things. I would be remiss to not mention your wife's company, because I think it's an important thing here in women for volleyball, and especially for women's volleyball, men as well that have longer hair. But tell us a little bit about the best hair tie in the world right now.
Obviously, you two use them. Obviously, so.
You and I use them all the time, Jerry, but that's probably maybe what happened. But no, I mean, I think it's a great. Michelle says it's the best tie she's ever used, and she uses it every day she works out. And I just think it'd be great to tell everyone a little bit about it.
Yeah, it was started out of a need. I was really frustrated with my players always adjusting their hair and breaking hair ties and not listening, and so I started studying the market, and went to Eddie Brown, who was with Nike, and said, hey, I got this concept, this idea I want to do. He's like, go for it. And then I started experimenting with some stuff and made an elastic that's 2 times stretchier and 13 times stronger, and you make loops based on the volume of your hair. And basically the issue with all women is that their hair tie ends up slipping and it damages their hair and gives them headaches and puts dents in it. And basically it fixed everything that's part of it now. And now my wife is the one that kind of really took it from the ground. She did take it from the ground up, and she's running it right now, and it's growing like crazy. You can see it all on the TV because we have the 2 little ends that hang out. It's called Spot the Knot, and I'm not really involved with it. She's doing the majority of the work, and really proud of what she's been doing. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. I mean, she's
we'll put a link down here for sure on the pod for it.
The knot.
Spot the knot. And it's on when it's on. Those are the 2 kind of big taglines that we have. But it's been fun, and it's been fun to see, and she's crushing it. So I'm really proud of her.
And they buy it directly, or is there an Amazon or
it's direct to consumer. I mean, today ESPN called her, so we're waiting to see. They want to do a feature on it, like how it's finding all the different athletes for the NCAA tournament. So hopefully we get.
That would.
Are you guys doing affiliates?
Awesome. Yeah. We have lots of affiliates. If you need some, just text me and we'll send it to you. We send it to all kinds of teams. So if you're a part of a team, we send them out as samples, and people love it, and they post about it, and people get word about it, and it's
Coley, you have an assignment.
Believe me, I already have some inside people there working myself. So I think it's great. I mean, I don't need it.
I've got a daughter playing at SIUE right now, so we're in the thick of things.
She plays
she's
at
doing
SIU.
track
Just send me the number, and then we'll have them reach out to our social media, TIY Products, and just say, hey, Jerritt was on our podcast. He said he said he would send us some samples, so we'll send it to the whole team.
That'd be great.
And she'll be the superstar.
Awesome. SIUE, baby. Go Cougars.
So yeah, we can take care of that right off afterwards, Sully. I got all the info, or if you need it.
That's great, Jerritt.
Reach out to his social media.
Tegan's going to be fired up. Yep.
So Sully and
Jerry,
the same mascot.
What?
The Cougars.
And who?
Yes.
Washington
and
State
CK
Cougars.
with the Cougars. Washington State Cougars.
You're right.
Next year.
You're right.
Can't wait.
SIUE Cougars and Washington State Cougars. Yep. She's playing volleyball first. She's a trackster, and they wanted her to play volleyball this year. So there she is on the roster. First one off the bench. So she's doing good. But I will let her know. She's going to freak, by the way.
Don't know what
so
they
it's going to
are.
be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if not, I mean, most people are wearing, a lot of women athletes, at least in collegiate, are wearing them. And
she knew who they were. She knew. She did her. She goes, "Oh, I know what these are. These are awesome, Dad." So yeah, no, you guys are the words getting around, which is great.
Be a hero. Well, Jerry, listen, we could talk forever and talk a lot about volleyball and just everything. First of all, thank you so much for making the time to talk to us. Thanks for introducing me to my wife. I owe you that. You know, if it wasn't for that volleyball club that you started and that you were coaching in, and that you asked me to coach for Lisa Hudak for the weekend, thanks to Lisa, I wouldn't have met Mooney. So, you know, I owe that to you as well. But really appreciate you taking the time. Texas is on a roll. It's been fun to watch. Women's volleyball across the country has been super fun to watch. Tune in everywhere you can. It's on every station. It's everywhere. When's your next match,
We play
Jerritt?
Wednesday at 8 o'clock Central Time against Vanderbilt, and Missouri on Friday at 8 o'clock Central Time. And, yeah, we'll make it happen. Let's get this podcast out in Austin or at the Final Four.
Yeah, we talked about doing
That's
that.
our goal with TK, right?
That is our goal.
Actually be at the Final Four and having a live broadcast. So we expect to be interviewing you there in between practice sessions.
That would be incredible. That would be an honor. We got a lot of work to do.
That'd be awesome.
We got to be humble for a while and keep working really hard. But it's a fun group to be a part of for sure.
Awesome. Spread the word about Set the Pipe. And like Coley said, Jerritt Elliott, head coach Texas, longtime player involved in volleyball for his lifetime. We appreciate you being here, buddy.
Thank you, guys. Welcome home.